Support for the Capital Connection comes from
United University Professions, representing 37,000 academic and professional employees at SUNY campuses and teaching hospitals across New York State. Frederick E. Cole, President, uupinfo.org.
It's the Capital Connection. Hi, I'm Alan Chartock. Joining us this week is Orange County, New York Executive Steve Neuhaus, a Republican. Welcome, County Executive Neuhaus. Great to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Now, a state Supreme Court judge has granted Orange County its request for a temporary restraining order to stop New York City from sending asylum seekers to the county. You, Republican County Executive Steve Neuhaus, says the order allows more than 180 asylum seekers already at hotels in Newburgh to remain, but prohibits New York City from sending more. Mayor Eric Adams says moving the migrants upstate aims to address the strain on the city's social services. Governor Hochul has reached out to the Biden administration for help. In the meantime, the plans have been met by opposition in many places, including Orange County, as well as states of emergency. So tell us more. Explain the whole thing to us.
I think literally the current situation is just a reflection of just bad planning. And I sit on the board of directors for the New York State Association of County Executives. I'm the incoming president. And we sit at the table. We have at least biweekly Zoom calls. The mayor's office is on there. And not once did he say, I have an emergency, I need help, guys. What they did is they booked hotel rooms and basically commandeered the entire hotel, kicking out people that were either living there or had plans to do weddings or, some type of tourism-related issue. But they turned these hotels into, or the intent was, to turn them into homeless shelters. When the mayor contacted myself and the Rockland County executive, he told me he was going to be there for 30 days and he's sending me 60 asylum seekers. I'm at 186. It's really the situation's out of control, and I understand it's a very difficult situation. The federal government needs to come up with a plan. They're ultimately at blame. But, New York City asked these folks, my homeless shelter is maxed out here in Orange County. So is my emergency housing. So rather than just forcing themselves upon counties like Orange, they should have put the SOS out, because there's other counties around the state that are willing and able to help. So I think it's a bad situation now. I think it's going to get a little bit worse, but I do believe it'll get better. It's just right now you got 15,000 expected asylum seekers coming in the next 5 or 6 days. It's nothing but a crisis at this point.
And could you define the crisis for us? In other words, how is this going to play out? Who's it going to hurt?
So I'll give you an example. Like Orange County, I got 186. The local police department, town of Newburgh, had at least 5 trespassing complaints from these individuals. They're not from here. They have no ID. They walk around with a lanyard on with a barcode on it. And if you're sending these folks, whether they're single men, which we got here, or married couples or families, you got to do better than that. Hey, we got them vetted. You got these folks here. Here's their names. Here's their date of birth. We're going to give them a temporary ID. This is what their status is. Some of them can work. Some of them can't. We have absolutely no information on these individuals. That's one of the things the Supreme Court judge ordered them to do yesterday. And so the judge, I think did a great job on this. And I've been deployed 4 times in the last 10 years. And I've seen refugee camps in Iraq, 10,000 people at a clip. Last year in Europe, the Polish government took a better way of doing it. And they said, hey, we have a surge of Ukrainian people coming in as refugees. Who would be willing to house them in their homes? So you literally would adopt a family if you have the wherewithal and the capability of doing it. And we've done that, by the way, in the last 8 months in Orange County with asylum seekers. We've had families that say, hey, I'm from Venezuela. I'm established here in Orange County. We have this family that just came over the border. I want to sponsor them until they can get their paperwork finalized, right? They've already applied for asylum, but there's a number of steps that need to be done. So I think there's better ways of doing it, guys. They just need to put the message out, hey, I need help. Here's the situation. What do we have available? And again, I think that's happening now. And I think that the next week will be tough, but it'll start getting better.
We're talking to Orange County Executive Steve Neuhaus. Steve, what is unique about Orange County that we should be all aware of as we listen to this?
So the thing that bothers me about it is that, I got West Point graduation coming in next week. This Saturday. I got the vice president flying in. All the families of those West Point graduates were canceled. We're in a beautiful, picturesque Hudson Valley. We had weddings planned. There is, as you see, there was about 20 veterans that they announced that were displaced and had to be put into another hotel, homeless veterans. It's just not the right way of doing things. And if you don't know who these folks are and you don't know what their status is, whether they can work or not, it just leaves a lot of questions. And unfortunately, because the country's been so divided lately, by the way, my parents are both off the boat, if you will, but both from Europe. Immigrants. I think that so many people are amped up that we need to. We really can't have a situation where we don't have the details. So what am I getting at here? I've had groups of protesters on both sides of this issue, and I don't need any more emergency management drama because of this. So that's been a huge headache for the New York State Police, my sheriff's office, the town police as well. Because nobody knows when these buses were coming. Nobody knew who these folks are. They didn't have any ID on them. That's a failure of New York City and obviously the state. If they ask for these folks to be here, you declared yourself as a sanctuary city, and they come here, you're like, well, I can't handle these. That's a problem.
Now, we do know that Governor Hochul has reached out to the Biden administration for help. What kind of help?
Well, not only is she, but our local Congress members, Democrat and Republican, have asked the Biden administration to declare a disaster site in New York because, if New York City stopped organizing this, they could just start busing. They had 7 busloads of asylum seekers show up yesterday on their doorstep. They could just get a bus ticket, a one-way bus ticket to any county in the state, and then they're homeless people in your community. So there could be worse scenarios. So I think the Biden administration needs to come up with a plan for vetting these individuals and giving them a pathway to, I believe, citizenship. Mark, I don't believe anybody that's in this country is going to be sent out unless it finds out that they're a bad guy, right? Otherwise, I believe most Americans and myself know that these folks are not going back. So the Biden administration has to come up with a plan, and I think expedite the paperwork for these folks because you can't have these people sitting around here. I had a couple from Colombia, wonderful couple, don't speak English well, 2 little kids. Their kids are automatically incorporated into school districts. They have to, right, within a week. If you have a kid show up in your county, they have to be within a week in the school district. So these parents are awaiting their status, and they're like, look, we want to work. And the federal government said, we won't have our papers for 2 years. That's not acceptable. These guys, we know that immigrants are one of the best workers and the hungriest people you can find on earth. Let's get them working papers if they're vetted, and let's let them get to work.
We're talking to Republican County Executive Steve Neuhaus. Steve, let me ask you this. What's the worst part of your job in managing all of this?
My worst part of the job right now is just the unknown. A lot of my public is freaked out about this because we don't know who these people are. If the city was transparent and said, hey, they've all been vetted, they're good to go, I could report that back to my residents and they could be, at ease. But, you hear all these crazy reports on the news that some of these guys, some people on the terrorist watch list came through, some criminals are getting through, and I'm sure that's probably happening. But I think everybody in this country believes that overwhelming majority of these people are coming for a better life for them and their families. And that has been the American story. So if we were able to say, hey, we checked these folks out, they're good to go, don't be worried about it, that would make things a little bit more palatable for people.
We're talking to Orange County Executive Steve Neuhaus. Okay, so Steve, you have to have an awful lot of interplay with other governmental officials like governors and congressmen and senators. How do you handle all that?
You just have to, I like, if it's an emergency, you call me. If it's something that can wait, you text me. So that's kind of been the rule for, I think, all of us county execs. The governor doesn't have a lot of time. She's a busy lady. I get it. And, we agree and disagree on certain issues. If it's an important issue, I'll tell her, and then we'll have a conversation on the call. So you just have to manage it and prioritize things. And I think my military training has helped develop me into somebody that can actually handle multi-situations, crises, life and death situations. So I'm kind of the guy from Office Space after he gets hypnotized with his character in that movie. And any crisis that comes his way, I'm not like freaking out and screaming. I'm like, all right, let's move forward. What's our options? And let's just go ahead. So that's how I roll.
So as a county executive, what is it that keeps you up at night?
The only thing, this immigration thing doesn't keep me up at night. What keeps me up at night is having some type of active shooter situation that we've seen around this country, hundreds of them since January of this year. And I constantly do emergency management drills. We also train businesses and schools, but that scares the heck out of me. Literally, these things are, I think the FBI says they're done in 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes from these calls to to try to make sure you did everything you can, and then the follow up afterwards. I mean, it's just, I've been a county exec for 10 years. This was not first and foremost when I first came into office. Now it is.
We're talking to Orange County, New York, Executive Steve Neuhaus, who is a Republican. So what does being a Republican in your job mean to you as opposed to being a Democrat?
I have a very good relationship with the Albany County Executive, Dan McCoy, who's a Democrat. I mean, him and I are very good, as you could get, close friends. We're both veterans, so I think that helps gel us. We're both different parties, but at the end of the day, the county executive is an operational job. You are calling the shots on a day-to-day basis for emergency management, public works, social services, working with your commissioners and your employees. So the Republican label, I'm a proud Republican, but I don't walk around with an elephant on my shirt during the day. I got a logo that says Orange County. Sometimes I'm wearing a T-shirt. Most of the times I'm wearing a suit. Sometimes I'm wearing a golf shirt. But, I just look at it as doing my job. I'm so privileged to do this, honored to have this job. I'm appreciative of this country. People ask me all the time, what's the best country I've ever visited? And believe me, I've been all over the place. 2 weeks from now, I'll be in Japan and seeing how their military is going to be the third largest military in the next few years.
Wow.
So
considering where they started from, yeah, that's amazing.
It's insane. Last year I got mobilized when Russia invaded Ukraine. So, came completely out of left field. And then in the summertime, I was in Hawaii for the largest naval exercise called RIMPAC. I'm on the aircraft carrier, a Japanese aircraft carrier overlooking the Arizona Memorial. Just picture that. the Arizona Memorial, I'm sitting on a aircraft carrier, Japanese aircraft carrier. So just like our grandparents' generation away, now these guys are our ally, and one of their aircraft carriers is sitting in Pearl Harbor, where World War II started for the United States.
Wow. Let's talk about housing. Governor Hochul's proposal to build 800,000 housing units over the next decade was left out of the budget. While the negotiations are continuing, the housing compact would have set housing targets for communities and offer state money to assist with infrastructure and other related needs. What's the state of housing in Orange County, and what's your assessment of the governor's plan?
So I think she wanted to address what is a housing crisis, and it is. The way she went about it obviously was not successful because New York State is unique. We have a home rule state. Your local mayor sometimes has a lot more power than your county executive or your governor. And that local zoning and all those local approvals rest closest with the people, the taxpayers, the voters. I think we in Orange County have a housing crisis like you see across not only the state, but the country. So I think there's got to be a balance, and it's got to be a cooperative balance with your local approvals and your local communities. I went and checked out a great housing development in the Hudson Valley that married like businesses on the bottom, and basically preserved a lot of open space. So basically had dense housing, but made it more of a synergy community where you have on Fridays they have live music. Everybody that lives in this community, 400 units, can walk to the village center. Local stores are popped up on these brand new main streets. So there's a lot of unique options out there. I think the funding that the state and federal government has put up will probably be helpful to make some of these successful. But I think that the local communities are going to have to lead, and they know that they have a problem, but they're going to have to lead and get creative with some of these solutions. But I saw some great ones. It was one I just saw in Dutchess County about 2 weeks ago, and I spent a few hours there. I was really pleasantly impressed on what they built there.
We're talking to Steve Newhouse, a Republican. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of the mass shooting at a Tops supermarket in Buffalo, and there's been more mass shootings in America than a number of days so far. In 2023, what's the state of guns and gun violence in Orange County and gun violence in general?
So we lead the state in taking illegal guns off the street. That was just announced last week, Orange County. But I'm very nervous. Pat Ryan, the new congressman here, him and I toured a affordable housing unit in the city of Newburgh 2 weeks ago, right? While we were out touring it together, I pointed out a girl walking down the street, and I said, look at this girl, and she had a 9mm magazine sticking out of her back pocket of her jeans. Wow. The guys that she was with, and to me, obviously, as a guy, I'm a veteran from Iraq, and so was Pat Ryan, I said, one of those guys is carrying a gun. And he was floored, and it just showed you how bad things are all over the country. But within 5 days of us seeing that, 2 guys were shot, one fatally, one's on life support now on that block. So we need to do more. I think the state has a self-inflicted wound with bail reform. We got to hold people accountable. A lot of people are walking. Those people were able to walk down the street because they had the gun did not have a loaded magazine in it. That's a problem. So I think we need to hold people accountable. We don't do it enough. And I think the police have been really villainized over the last couple of years, and we need to back them up. I have no cops in my family, but I appreciate what we have. And I've seen other societies where you don't have, where lawlessness runs their country. We don't need to have that here. So I think we need to hold the people accountable. I'm sorry.
We've seen a rise in anti-Semitism and racist acts in general. What are you encountering in Orange County?
So I've seen some spikes over the years up and down, but, I think this comes down to the household. And I have 4 kids, and you have to raise them right, and you have to give them some course corrections when they need them. And, and I say this because I know in one of my kids' schools, a kid was recently kicked out because she made really bad racial remarks that kids don't come up with this stuff. They're learning it somewhere. So I think that diversity is better now than ever. I mean, I have 5,000 Chinese refugees that live in Orange County. Probably nobody listening to this program even knows that. I said it to the Orange County, to one of our attorneys this morning. He was floored. We have over 30,000 Hasidic Jews living here that, obviously that had come to this country seeking a better life from fascist Europe. So we are very diverse here. But that also adds to some people's not familiar, they're not familiar with different cultures. So you get some dumb comments made from people over, in society. The state police, the sheriff, and the local police chiefs, and I meet on a regular basis. I call the emergency management meeting on a regular basis to talk and try to cut some of these things off before they become a problem. But so I think we've gotten better. I think society has gotten better. But what's alarming to me is what kids say and bullying from kids and hitting people on maybe sexual orientation, on their race. And that's disturbing, and I think that's got to be stopped at the home. So I think parents need to do a better job of raising their kids right. And maybe the kids are reflecting to what the parents are saying. So those are the type of things that go through my mind when you talk about that.
We're talking to Republican County Executive Steve Newhouse. Steve, let's talk a little bit about bail reform. This issue tied up budget odds with the governor's fellow Democrats in the legislature. The governor was ultimately able to tweak the bail reform law, giving judges more discretion in setting up bail. But many Republicans are still not satisfied with the law. What are you thinking about all of this?
They tweaked it. It's literally a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I met with all my local judges the other day. They were outraged, Republican and Democrat. They can't even enforce the law. There's illegal drugs being sold out on the streets all over New York State right now, and they'll continue to be sold, and they'll continue to kill people and get people addicted and lead to worse things. And it's because of one thing, discovery. We can't get the discovery back on some of these illegal drugs in the short time period that bail reform has required us and our prosecutors to get them on. They are literally, New York State legislature and the governor, by allowing this to happen, are allowing men and women and kids of all ages to die of overdoses and get addicted and lead into a life of crime because they're really not listening. When they pass these laws, they got to bring defense attorneys and prosecutors and law enforcement in the room and say what's working, what's not working. The last thing you want is a politician calling the shots on this, especially if they're uneducated in the subject.
We just had a school budget vote this week. I see Minisink Valley Central School District in your county did not pass the budget. Tell us about the schools in Orange County. Are people generally supportive of the schools?
I think overwhelmingly people are, and that's reflected in most of the budgets passing. But look, some of these, that's what's great about Orange County and New York State as a whole. It's such a local home rule state that, one issue might change something. One issue will drive people to kill a budget or push an issue and literally change things up and down. I bought my kids, they asked me last night, I voted at like 8:45 last night. And my kids why is the school board election there little? My kids are like 5, 8, 11, and I have a 13-year-old. But the little guys are like, why is it so important? I said, because all these great things that you have in your class could be cut or kept depending on how many people vote and support these things. So for the most part, they all passed, and overwhelmingly, some of them 2-1, some 3-1. Mm-hmm. So, I think that, again, people are generally okay right now. And it's, even though we have hyperinflation and people are talking about a recession and the economy, people value their education for their kids. And you're talking to one right now.
Well, it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to our friend, Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse, a Republican. Steve, you're always invited back here, and I hope you'll continue to come.
Anytime you want me on, I'm happy to be here.
The Capital Connection is a production of WAMC Northeast Public Radio. Capital Connection is hosted by Alan Chartalk. You can listen to the Capital Connection anytime at WAMCpodcast.org or anywhere you get your podcasts. You can sign up for weekly show updates by subscribing to our newsletter, Airwaves, and by following us on social media at WAMC Radio. Thanks for listening.